The sun had just begun to set, casting a golden glow through the kitchen window as I stood in front of the stove, stirring a pot of marinara sauce. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, a familiar comfort that usually brought a smile to my face. But today, my heart felt heavy, weighed down by a growing sense of neglect. My mother had been so absorbed in her work lately, leaving me to manage the household on my own. I often found myself longing for her attention, for a simple acknowledgment of my presence. As I stirred the sauce, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I turned slightly to see Jake, my stepfather, leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed casually over his chest. He looked relaxed, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice smooth and inviting. I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. Jake had always been charming, the kind of man who could light up a room with his charisma. But there was something different about the way he looked at me today, an intensity that made my heart race. Sure," I replied, trying to sound casual as I focused on the simmering sauce. He stepped closer, reaching out to grab a wooden spoon from the counter. As he leaned over, our arms brushed against each other, sending a jolt of electricity through me. I felt my cheeks flush and quickly turned my gaze back to the pot, hoping he hadn't noticed my reaction. "You're really good at this," he said, stirring the sauce with a practiced hand. "I think you could give Mom a run for her money in the kitchen." "Thanks," I mumbled, acutely aware of how close he was standing. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a weight that made it hard to breathe. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears as I tried to maintain my composure. As the silence stretched between us, I could feel his presence, like a magnet, drawing me in. I glanced up, meeting his gaze, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The world outside the kitchen ceased to exist, and all I could focus on was the warmth radiating from him. "You know," he said softly, "it's nice to have some time just the two of us. I feel like we never get to talk anymore." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Talking? Or was there something more beneath his words? "Yeah, I guess we don't," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake took a step closer, and I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. "I've noticed you've been a bit down lately," he said, his tone laced with genuine concern. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to confide in him, to share how lonely I felt. But the other part of me was terrified of crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. I miss Mom," I finally admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "She's been so busy with work." Jake nodded, his expression softening. "I get it. It's tough when family feels distant. But I'm here if you ever want to talk, Emma." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Just then, I felt an inexplicable urge to reach out, to close the gap that had formed between us. I took a small step forward, our bodies almost touching. The tension was palpable, and I could feel my heart racing wildly in my chest. "Thanks, Jake," I murmured, unsure of what I truly wanted to say. In that moment, I felt a rush of emotions, confusion, longing, and something darker that I couldn't quite name. He leaned in slightly, our faces inches apart, and I could feel my breath hitch in my throat. Was I really standing here, flirting with the man who was supposed to be my stepfather? The lines between right and wrong blurred, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about our relationship. "Emma," he said, his voice low and steady, "you're not just my stepdaughter. You're someone I care about. I want you to know that." His words sent a shiver down my spine, igniting a fire within me that I didn't know existed. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the boundaries of our roles and the undeniable connection that was forming between us. The days that followed our accidental brush felt like a charged current running through the air, buzzing with unspoken tension. Each time I caught Jake's eye, my heart would skip, a frantic melody of desire and confusion playing in my chest. It was maddening, the way we moved around each other in the house, each stolen glance, each accidental touch, a silent agreement that something had shifted between us. One afternoon, I found myself in the living room, flipping through a magazine, though I hardly registered the pages. My mind was too occupied with thoughts of Jake, his dark hair, the way his smile seemed to light up the room, and the gentle way he spoke to me, as if I were the only person who mattered. Just then, he walked in, and I felt my breath hitch. He was wearing a fitted gray t-shirt that hugged his frame perfectly, and the way he ran a hand through his hair made my heart race. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "What are you up to?" "Just nothing," I replied, forcing a casual tone despite the butterflies in my stomach. "Just reading." He stepped closer, glancing at the magazine in my hands. "You know, I never took you for a fashion enthusiast." His eyes sparkled with mischief. I laughed softly, trying to play it cool. "I'm not. It's just something to pass the time." "Want to help me with dinner tonight?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Your mom is working late, and I could use an extra pair of hands." I nodded, feeling a thrill wash over me. "Sure, I'd love to." As we prepared dinner together, the kitchen filled with the scent of sautéing vegetables. Our movements were fluid and easy, like we had done this 1,000 times before, though there was an undercurrent of something more intense. I could feel him close behind me as I chopped onions, the warmth radiating from him making me acutely aware of just how narrow the space between us was. "Careful with that knife," he said, his voice suddenly low and serious. "You don't want to cut yourself." I glanced back over my shoulder, meeting his gaze. The moment hung heavy in the air, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "I'll be fine," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Without breaking eye contact, he stepped even closer, his breath brushing against my neck. "Just be careful, okay?" And then, as if the world around us faded away, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. It was a gentle, tentative kiss, but it ignited a fire within me, shattering the fragile line we had been walking. My mind raced with a mix of shock and exhilaration, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. I pulled back, wide-eyed and breathless. "Jake." "What?" But he silenced me with another kiss, deeper this time, as if he were trying to convey everything he felt in that moment. My head spun, and I found myself melting into him, the world around us disappearing into a haze of warmth and longing. It felt right and utterly wrong at the same time, a delicious contradiction that sent my senses into overdrive. "What are we doing?" I finally managed to breathe, pulling away just enough to look into his eyes, searching for some semblance of clarity. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. "I don't know, Emma. I can't help myself." The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I was caught in a storm of emotions, guilt, excitement, fear, swirling within me. "This is complicated," I stammered, my mind racing with the potential consequences. "I know," he replied, his voice low and earnest. "But I can't stop thinking about you. I've tried, but it's impossible." My heart raced at his confession, and for a moment, the world outside the kitchen faded into oblivion. We were lost in our own universe, a place where nothing else mattered. Just the two of us caught in this tangled web of desire and confusion. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. As I stood there, breathless and dazed, I felt the undeniable pull between us, a magnetic force that was impossible to resist. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered the truth. This was wrong. Yet all I could think about was how alive I felt in that moment, how intoxicating it was to be desired by him, to share this secret that was ours and ours alone. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, the glow of the screen illuminating the darkened room. My heart raced as I replayed the moment I had stumbled upon Jake's phone, my stepfather's phone, while he was in the shower. Curiosity had gotten the better of me, and the messages I found gnawed at my insides. They were from a woman whose name I didn't recognize. The messages were flirty, filled with laughter and inside jokes that made my stomach twist. "Who is she?" I whispered to myself, the words hanging heavy in the air. I could still hear the sound of the shower running in the background, the water cascading like a waterfall, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. When Jake finally emerged, water droplets glistening on his skin, my resolve crumbled under the weight of my feelings. He greeted me with that familiar warm smile, the one that always made my heart flutter. But today, it felt different, tainted by the betrayal I sensed lurking beneath the surface. "Hey, Em, what's up?" he asked, his voice casual, as if nothing had changed. Just thinking," I replied, my voice shaky. I couldn't help but feel the tension crackling between us, a mix of desire and uncertainty. "About what?" he probed, stepping closer. I wanted to melt into him, to forget the messages, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. "About you," I blurted out, the words spilling before I could catch them. "About us." His expression shifted, a flash of concern flickering across his face. "Us? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding erratically. "I found some messages on your phone." The words hung between us like a fragile thread, ready to snap. "What messages?" He feigned ignorance, but I could see the tension in his jaw tighten. "From a woman. Flirty texts, Jake. Who is she?" I demanded, my voice rising in pitch. He stepped back, running a hand through his damp hair, an expression of frustration crossing his features. "Emma, it's not what you think. It's a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? Jake, I don't think so." I could feel the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "You've been so distant. I've felt it. And now this. This woman?" He sighed, the weight of his frustration spilling over. "I can explain. Just, please, let me. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my words. "How can it be complicated? You're my stepdad. I thought we had something real." Jake stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "I care about you, Emma. You have to believe me. But there are things about my past, things I haven't shared. This woman, she's not what you think." "What do you mean?" I pressed, desperate for answers. "Just tell me the truth." He ran a hand down his face, the tension in his shoulders heavy. "I had a life before your mother. People I knew, things I did. I thought I was leaving it behind, but it's all coming back. This woman, she's part of that life." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So you're saying you still have ties to your past? To her?" "I can't explain everything right now. Just trust me, please." "I need time to figure this out," he said, his voice softening, almost pleading. "Trust you?" I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing in the silent room. "How can I trust you when I see messages like that?" "Emma, please," he implored, stepping closer, his hands reaching out to hold my arms. "I need you to understand. I made mistakes. But I'm here now, with you. That's what matters. I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth, but all I saw was a reflection of my own confusion and longing. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Jake. I need to figure things out. Then let me help you. Let me show you that there's nothing to worry about. Just give me a chance, he pleaded, his grip tightening slightly. I pulled away, my emotions swirling like a tempest. I can't just ignore what I found. I need to know more. I can't keep living in this lie. As I backed away, my mind raced. I had to find answers. The hurt mixed with desire left me feeling like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to plunge into an abyss of uncertainty. "Where are you going?" he called after me, but I didn't respond. I needed space to think, to breathe. My heart was a battlefield, torn between love and betrayal, and I was lost in the chaos. As I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I felt a strange sense of determination wash over me. I would uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the darkness that surrounded Jake and our relationship. I had to know what I was dealing with before I could decide if our affair was worth fighting for or if it was time to walk away. I stood frozen in the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around me, but all I could focus on was the woman sitting across the table from me. Her striking resemblance to Jake sent a shiver down my spine. The air felt thick with unspoken truths as she scrutinized me with piercing blue eyes. "Emma, right?" she said, her voice a mixture of warmth and caution. "I'm Sarah, Jake's sister." The world around me blurred. "His sister?" I echoed, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. "He never mentioned you." Sarah smiled faintly, but there was a sadness behind it. "That's not surprising. We haven't spoken in years." She leaned closer, her expression serious. "I know this might be overwhelming, but there are some things you need to know about Jake, about our family." I felt my heart race, a cocktail of curiosity and dread swirling inside me. "What do you mean?" "Jake has a complicated past," she began, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her cup. "Our family has been through a lot. There are secrets that he's kept from you, secrets that could change everything." As she spoke, I recalled the texts I had found on Jake's phone, each message a dagger to my heart. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "Because I care about him, and I care about you," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "He's been through hell, and it's taken a toll on him. I know he loves you, but he's also scared." "Scared of what?" I demanded, desperation creeping into my voice. "What could possibly justify the lies?" Sarah took a deep breath, her face softening. "He lost a lot when our parents died. He felt alone, abandoned. He was always trying to protect me, trying to hold everything together. But in doing that, he pushed me away, and he's been living with that guilt. I think he's trying to find a way to make things right, but he's lost sight of what that means." My mind raced. Could this be true? Was Jake's past really as tangled as Sarah described? I thought about the moments we shared, the way he looked at me, the passion that ignited between us. And yet, doubts crept in. And what about the woman in those texts? Is she part of this too? Sarah's expression darkened. "That's a complicated story. There are things about our mother that you don't know, things that Jake has kept hidden to protect you." "Protect me?" I spat, feeling the betrayal sting anew. "Or to protect himself?" "Both, I think," she admitted, glancing away. "But you need to understand, he didn't want to hurt you. None of this was supposed to happen." I felt my chest tighten. "But it did happen. He kissed me, Sarah. He brought me into this mess." She reached across the table, her hand hovering over mine. I know it's hard, but you need to talk to him. You deserve the truth. As her words sank in, a mix of anger and confusion swirled within me. What if he doesn't want to tell me? What if he's just trying to keep me in the dark? Then you have to confront him, Sarah urged. But be prepared. This isn't just about you and him. It's about a family that's been shattered, and it's going to take time to heal. The cafe felt stifling as I processed the weight of her revelations. I was caught between my feelings for Jake and the growing suspicion that he had been deceiving me. What should I do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Go home. Talk to him. Ask the questions you need answers to, she replied, her tone firm. You deserve honesty. No more secrets. I nodded slowly, my mind racing. As I stood to leave, Sarah reached out, squeezing my hand gently. Just remember, whatever happens, you're not alone in this. Walking out of the cafe, I felt the sun warm my face, yet an icy chill gripped my heart. I had to confront Jake. It was time to demand the truth, to untangle the web of lies and secrets that had ensnared us both. But as excitement clashed with anxiety, I couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would change everything. The car ride to the cabin was filled with an uneasy silence. Jake kept glancing at me, as if searching for the right words, but all that settled in the air between us was thick with tension. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, the anticipation and dread swirling together like storm clouds. His proposal of a weekend getaway had felt like a desperate attempt to escape the chaos. But now, as we drove deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading straight into a storm of our own making. When we finally reached our destination, the cabin stood nestled among towering pines, its rustic charm somehow both inviting and foreboding. Jake parked the car and turned to me, his gaze intense. Emma, before we go in, I need to talk to you about something important. I nodded, my stomach twisting in knots. Okay. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. My past. It's complicated. I haven't been completely honest with you. About what? I pressed, feeling a mix of curiosity and fear. About your mother and me. There are things you don't know. His voice was low, almost shaking. We stepped into the cabin, the wooden walls embracing us with a familiar warmth, but any comfort was overshadowed by the weight of his words. I crossed my arms, bracing myself for whatever revelation awaited me. Just tell me, Jake. He moved to the small living area where a fireplace flickered with the remnants of a fire from earlier that day. We were together before you were born. Your mother and I had a tumultuous relationship. We loved each other, but it was toxic. I made mistakes, and she made mistakes. I thought I could change. I thought we could fix it. I felt my heart sink. So you had an affair with her? While you were married to her? He nodded slowly, pain etched across his features. It wasn't just an affair. It was complicated love, filled with passion and anger. I regret it, Emma, but I thought I was doing the right thing by marrying her after everything. My mind reeled, and I felt a mix of anger and betrayal boiling within me. You never told me this. You let me believe you were some kind of perfect stepdad. I wasn't perfect. I'm not perfect, he replied, his voice rising slightly. I've hurt people I care about. I've hurt you, but I never meant to. As we stood there, the air thick with unresolved feelings, I noticed something peculiar on the table. A stack of letters, yellowed and worn. My curiosity piqued. I reached for them, flipping one over. My heart dropped as I recognized my mother's handwriting. Jake, what are these? He stepped closer, his eyes widening. No, Emma, don't. But I had already torn open the envelope, reading the words that shattered my world. They were love letters, intimate confessions of her feelings for him, written during the time she and I had been estranged. The last line struck me like a blow. I can't wait to be with you again. You're the only one who understands me. Were you still seeing her when you married my mother? My voice was barely a whisper, laced with disbelief. Emma, please. Stop! Just stop! I shouted, my emotions spilling over. You were never honest with me. I thought we had something real, something beyond this twisted family dynamic, and all this time, you were just a part of her past. Emma, listen. I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to know the truth about our relationship. Jake responded, desperation creeping into his tone. I never wanted you to feel like you were part of something broken. Broken? I echoed incredulously. This is a nightmare, and I can't believe you didn't think I deserved to know the truth. Just then, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. My heart froze as I recognized the woman standing before me. It was the mysterious woman from the cafe, the one who had fueled my jealousy and suspicion. Emma, she began, her voice trembling. Who are you? I demanded, my heart racing. I'm your mother, she said softly, and the world around me shattered into a million pieces. The truth flooded over me like a cold wave, leaving me breathless and stunned. I had spent my life feeling abandoned, but now, the pieces of my past began to fit together in a way I never expected. Jake's face paled as he turned to her. You shouldn't be here, not now. But it was too late for excuses. The door had been opened, and with it, the realization that the web of betrayal and desire had only begun to unravel. The confrontation I had feared was finally upon us, and I was left standing in the eye of the storm, ready to face the chaos that was my life.